With the launch date of Destiny 2 Beyond Light getting closer, more and more people are gravitating back towards the game. From players coming back from extended breaks to brand new players deciding to dip their toes into the Destiny universe for the first time. Whether you are the former or the latter, I wanted to make this video for those of you that may need some help catching up. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Man of Cole, and today, let's talk about the best hunter subclasses to use in PvP. I want to start off by saying that my initial thought was to make a video for each class, meaning Warlock, Titan, and Hunter, and do the exact same thing that I'm doing in this video, ranking each of the individual subclasses in a tiered list. Let me know if that's something that you guys would want in the future. I chose to do Hunter first because it's my main class and I know a little bit more of the ins and outs of their subclasses than I do the other ones. Again, let me know in the comments if you want a video on Warlocks and Titans. Alright, so there are 3 points that I wanted to go over before we start with the tier list. The first thing is that I am not taking into account the use of any exotics. This is just a straight up ranking of the subclass by itself. There are obviously exotic armor pieces that can enhance some of these subclasses, some being better than others. I just wanted to provide a raw review / ranking of the subclass as it is. The second thing I wanted to mention was that some subclasses become more effective the higher the individual player's skill level is. These rankings are going to reflect the average PvP player's experience, though I will give an additional ranking based on the subclass's potential with higher skilled players. And the last thing is that all of these subclasses have the exact same class ability and jumps. So no matter which subclass you decide to choose, you will always have the choice of either Marksman's Dodge or Gambler's Dodge, and for the jumps you can either choose from High Jump, Triple Jump, or Strafe Jump. Also, just keep in mind all of these rankings are only in relation to all of the other Hunter subclasses. These rankings do not reflect how I would rank them against Warlock or Titan subclasses. These are just in relation to the Hunter subclasses we are going over today. Okay, with that being said, let's jump into our first subclass, Gunslinger. All of the grenades for Gunslinger are actually pretty good in PvP. We've got Swarm Grenade, Incendiary Grenade, and Trip Mine Grenade. For a large portion of Destiny 2, the Trip Mine Grenade could not stick to enemies, unlike in Destiny 1 when you could throw them at an enemy and it would stick to them. However, recently they reverted back to those times, so now we can once again unicorn our opponents. Most of these nades are capable of getting opponents one-shot or finishing them off if they've taken any kind of damage. This is more of a personal preference on which one you want to use. Let's move into the top tree of Gunslinger, Way of the Outlaw. In this tree, we get Proximity, Explosive Knife, Chains of Woe, 6-Shooter, and Deadshot. The Explosive Throwing Knife requires very particular situations to be useful and can sometimes be used to finish off an opponent that is weak, but the explosive part of this knife is pretty underwhelming. Chains of Woe is a solid perk which could see some effectiveness in all modes of the Crucible. 6-Shooter is interesting to me. I'm not really a huge fan of it personally, as I prefer the traditional 3-shot super, but I know a lot of people are very good at using 6-shooter and being really good with it. And Deadfall is just a cherry on the top. Overall, I'm going to place this subclass in the C tier with the potential of being in the B tier when used by the right person. Moving on to bottom tree, which is Way of the Sharpshooter. In this subclass set, we get Weighted Knife, Practice Makes Perfect, Line 'em Up, and Knock 'em Down. I think this is the most underrated subclass for all of the Hunter subclasses. Weighted Knife was added to the subclass set a little while back and has given Hunters their one-shot melee kill back. Very effective in the right hands. Knock 'em Down is very rewarding for players that are able to get precision kills rather easily, giving players more stability and handling after every precision kill. Huge bonuses there. Line 'em Up is kinda meh for PvP, and Practice Makes Perfect is fine and can help extend Golden Gun's duration a bit longer. Like I said earlier, I think this is the most underrated subclass for all of the Hunter subclasses, which is why I'm ranking it in the B tier with the potential to be in the A tier when used effectively. The final subclass set for Gunslinger is Way of 1,000 Cuts. And in this subclass set, our super is not the traditional Golden Gun like in the previous two. For this set, we get Blade Barrage, which vaults you into the air and unleashes a volley of solar charged explosive knives. We also get Knife Trick, which throws a fan of flaming knives instead of just one, the Burning Edge, and Playing with Fire. This subclass has some very good synergy with itself. Damaging an enemy with the throwing knives activates the Burning Edge perk, which recharges your dodge faster. Always a plus. If you are able to get a kill with the throwing knives, it then recharges the cooldown on getting those knives back, and I believe it stacks up to 3 times. The super is decent and can shut down supers if you need it to, although the hit registration is not very consistent, at least with my experience. So just keep that in mind if you are trying to rely on it to shut down any of the roaming supers. It might not always be reliable in its hit registration. I'm putting this subclass in the B tier. However, this is about as high as I think its potential could get. My main reason again is the very inconsistent hit registration on the super, which I think is the most crucial part of this subclass set. Alright Arcstriders, it's your turn to be put on the hot seat. For grenades, we've got Skip Grenade, Flux Grenade, and Arc Bolt Grenade. Arc Bolt is really the only decent one here. The other two are kind of meh on their own. There are exotics that can enhance them a little bit, but we aren't taking them into account for the purposes of this video. Top tree Arcstrider is Way of the Warrior, and we get Combination Blow, Combat Flow, Lethal Current, and Deadly Reach. Any abilities that grant health regen are always going to be beneficial, which is what Combination Blow grants when you get a melee kill. However, most of the rest of the subclass set revolves around meleeing and doing melee damage, which just isn't what a hunter is equipped to do. So I'm putting this in the C tier with a potential staying in the C tier as well. Moving on to the bottom tree Arcstrider subclass set, Way of the Wind. In this set, we get Disorienting Blow, Focused Breathing, Lightning Reflexes, and Combat Meditation. This orienting blow can be somewhat useful in PvP as the disorient mechanic is pretty significant, but otherwise the rest of the subclass set is pretty underwhelming when compared to some of the other subclasses. And for those of you that have seen some of my other videos, you know that I am not a fan of perks and mechanics that require you to have low health in order to get it to proc. I would much rather have something that is consistently active no matter the situation, which is why I'm placing this in the D tier with the potential to be put in the C tier. Obviously, any player that is good enough can make any subclass good. I just don't see a ton of potential out of using this subclass. There are many other options to choose from. The last subclass set for Arcstrider is Way of the Current. And for Way of the Current, our super gets Whirlwind Guard, which allows us to wield our arc staff to deflect incoming projectiles. It also triples our arc staff damage when we reflect those projectiles. Now it says projectiles, but it basically means anything, even other supers. So for instance, if you pop your arc staff around a corner and all of a sudden a warlock decides to panic Nova Bomb you, if you are quick enough to press whatever button it is for you to deflect with your arc staff, it will actually reflect the Nova Bomb away from you. There are a lot of clips out there of many situations like this happening. This is a great subclass to try and meme around in quick play if that's your thing too. Try it out sometime, it's very fun. The other parts of the subclass are pretty decent as well. We get some melee ability variety with Tempest Strike, which unleashes an uppercut attack after we slide. It's pretty cool, but it does require a specific mechanic in order to be activated, so keep that in mind. Ebb and Flow and Lightning Weave are fine perks too. Nothing fancy, but they give some solid bonuses to the class. Overall, I'm placing this in the C tier with the potential to be put in the B tier. The main reason for this placement is because it can block some supers when played correctly. A really good player that knows the ins and outs of this class can be very effective in PvP. Last but not least, let's check in with our Nightstalker subclass. The grenades for Nightstalker each have their specific moments where they excel. Most people use Void Wall or Vortex to pair with the Smoke Bomb. Otherwise, Spike Grenade can be pretty effective on maps that have a lot of walls with flat surfaces. Let's start with Way of the Trapper. In this subclass set, we get Snare Bomb, Keen Scout, Vanishing Step, and Deadfall. So this is probably the subclass that most hunter users are going to be using if they are trying to use their tether to suppress any kind of supers or abilities. This is the very basic shoot your tether once, and if enemies walk inside of it, they become tethered and suppressed. We also get a Snare Bomb, which sticks to surfaces and doesn't detonate until enemies go near it, thus slowing and disorienting them. This can actually be a really nice mechanic to use during trials or any 3v3 content, as the Snare Bomb actually appears as a blip on the enemy's radar. This allows for some very clever territory control and can oftentimes deter other people from wanting to come near you if they see more than one blip on the radar. We also get Keen Scout, which isn't a bad perk to have in PvP as it allows us to sprint and sneak faster while also giving us some more precise radar. And to top this subclass off, we have Vanishing Step, which allows you to go invisible after dodging for a short period of time. This can also be used for some clever plays, though against a better PvP player, you might not get away with as many things as you might think. I'm placing this subclass set in the B tier. However, that's about as high as I think it will ever be, so its potential is staying as a B. As I said earlier, this is probably the class you would use most if you were wanting to shut down any roaming supers. For that reason, as well as some decent neutral game perks, I'm placing it in the B tier. Next, let's go over Way of the Pathfinder. This is the subclass set that grants you Quiver for your super, allowing you to shoot your tether multiple times. We also get Vanish in Smoke, Lockdown, and Combat Provision. This is really more of a PvE subclass than a PvP one. You get way more bang for your buck in PvE than you do in PvP. The only real shining light in this subclass set is Lockdown, which makes your grenade effect last twice as long, but even that is kind of underwhelming. Not much else to say for this one, so I'm placing it in the D tier with some potential to make it into the C tier. Now, before we get into the last one, if you enjoyed this video, hitting the subscribe button would really help me out as we are approaching 1,000 subscribers. Any kind of support is greatly appreciated. With that said, let's go into our last subclass set, Way of the Wraith. This is probably the most used subclass set for hunters, and for a good reason. One of the main reasons is because our super changes from a more passive, super suppressing one to a very aggressive, let's slay out super. Spectral Blades is a very strong super in the Crucible right now. Not only is it fairly hard to kill once activated, but add on top of that the amount of ground you can cover on the map while activated, as well as how long the super stays active. It's no wonder so many people use this. We also get Corrosive Smoke as our melee ability, Shattering Strike, and Flawless Execution, which grants invisibility and True Sight while getting a precision kill being crouched. True Sight is basically like having a wall hack. For a few seconds after True Sight is activated, enemies are highlighted on the map, even showing up through walls. A very effective tool in PvP. With the super alone, I would place this in the B tier, but also giving us Flawless Execution gives me more than enough reason to place this in the A tier, atop the entire Hunter subclass ecosystem. Hopefully when Beyond Light comes and we finally get a brand new elemental damage type / subclass, we might see some other subclass dethrone Spectral Blades in PvP. But until then, this is going to be the subclass to use if you are a hunter. What are your thoughts on this list? Did I place any in the wrong tier, or did you agree with most of them? Let me know down in the comments. Links to all of my affiliate discount codes, as well as links to my Twitch, Twitter, and Discord are all in the description box below. Thank you all very much for watching. A positive rating is always appreciated, and as always, we'll see ya.